We know Illinois is going to be in good shape, but who else might they be contending with in the Big Ten for the foreseeable future? Locked On Illini, let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Illini, your first listen every single day. Simple reminder, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Sunny Verma. You can find me at IlliniCast or at the Sunny V. Also, I've been doing a lot of these shows live streaming via TikTok, so find me at Sunny V on TikTok if that's your sort of thing. Either way, if you'd like to support the show, a simple like and follow will suffice. You guys have no idea, but that really does help the algorithm. It sends us to other like-minded Illinois fans. It shows up in their feed, and if they like the content, they hit the subscribe button. All of a sudden, this channel continues to grow as we make our way to 1,000. Today's episode is going to be a fun one. I'm going to be bringing on my Friday buddy, Kent, from Casual Big Ten. I'm going to be bringing on my buddy Kent from Casual Big Ten, and we're going to be discussing the Big Ten announcing the locations for the Big Ten tournament for through 2028. And we're going to be talking about what kind of teams the Illinois might be facing off with at the top of the Big Ten in that time. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone. Every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So on Wednesday, the Big Ten Conference announced the destinations for its Big Ten tournaments, both the women's and the men's, through the 2028 seasons. And I'll just very quickly run it down. In 2025, next year, it's going to be in Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. In 2026, it'll be at the United Center in Chicago. In 2027, it's going to be in the Gainbridge Fieldhouse once again in Indianapolis. And in 2028, it's going to be at T-Mobile Arena out in Las Vegas. Now, there's reasoning behind that, which I'll get to in a later segment. But now, knowing where the destination of the Big Ten tournament is going to be for the next 4 years, it's Friday. You know, I try to take a little easier on these sort of episodes, and there's no one more unserious to have this conversation with me than my good friend Kent from Casual Big Ten. Kent, how are we doing, buddy?
I am fantastic. Happy Friday. It's a great Friday because we're in August now, so we're that I can feel football coming. Like it's right around the corner. I know we're talking about basketball today, but once the calendar turned over, it felt different.
For me, it was just being at Big Ten Media Days, seeing coaches there. I feel like that's like the unofficial kickoff season. When the Phil Steele magazines come out, the Pick Six preview magazines come out, that's like the preseason. But then once, Big Ten Media Day hits, and now Illinois started practices this week, now I feel like, okay, it's time. It's almost time.
Yeah, I feel like, we're just a couple more boring weekends away from having it filled up with football, wall to wall. It's going to be great. It'll be so fun.
It's going to be fun. But let's stick to basketball just for now. So, Ken, I had a fun idea for Friday. Obviously, we know the destinations through 2028. So we're looking at a 4-year window. What I wanted to do is run down with you. Let's go through all the Big Ten teams and check on their viability on being contenders for the Big Ten title. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily historic programs who've historically been very good, but might have a tough short-term future. I'm talking about teams in the next 4 years that we think have a good or bad future. That's for you and I to decide. That work for you?
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And it's going to be really fun too, because in this day and age, we keep talking about NIL and so much stuff changing in basketball and coaches changing constantly. So it's going to be kind of hard to predict what's going to happen, but let's take a stab at it. It's going to be fun.
Let's do it. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how we should go by this. Should we do it in reverse alphabetical order? Or should we just go in order of teams that we think will be contending, or in order of things that we think will not be contending? Should we wipe out the teams that won't be contending?
I think it'd be easier to keep track of them if we just go reverse alphabetical order.
Okay, let's do it. Tells me we go with the Wisconsin Badgers first. Now, Wisconsin's a team that's been somewhat contending over the last couple seasons. Obviously, they had a more dominant run. I don't know if dominant is the word I'd choose, but a more promising run when they were under Bo Ryan. Now with Greg Gard, I'm not sure the feelings out in Madison are that they're going to be competing the top 3 or 4, especially now that the new programs are joining us. What do you think?
I totally agree. If I had to make an average for where they would finish for the next 4 years, I would put it right in the middle, probably like at 8, because they're never really, really bad. But I don't foresee them in the next couple of years being at that top tier. Like they might have 1 year where they, get a AJ Store type guy, like they had, and they make a push towards the top. But I don't see that person on their team right now, and I don't see it coming anytime very soon with Gard running the show there. So I don't see them competing. No.
Yeah, Greg Gard's one of those guys who seems like a really nice guy, but the fan base was ready to move on from him. And then apparently the Wisconsin Badgers secretly extended him. So he's going to be around for the foreseeable future. So I'm going to kind of also cross them off the list, at least contending with the Illini through 2028. Okay, so let's go to the Washington Huskies. What are your thoughts on Washington?
No. There's nothing I like about their basketball program. Like I had to look up who their coach was from last year before they hired their new coach, and I had never heard of him before. And that just kind of tells me like the closest thing I ever had to anything related to Washington basketball was a kid I coached was being recruited by them, and I was like, "Are you actually considering going there?" Like I've never heard of anybody playing basketball there. So he ended up not going there. He went to Alabama instead, but
Nice.
I don't like anything about Washington. They're not going to be anywhere near the top.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if, for the purpose of this segment, if we're talking about contending, you're talking about what, top 5, top 4, top 5 teams in the Big Ten, and I just don't think Washington has the not just resources but even interest on the basketball side to really make a dent there. All right, next up we have USC.
Yes, they will be competitive. I think that they're going to be more competitive even this year than people are realizing. But I don't think that they're going to be a team that's going to necessarily be in the race this year.
Right.
But with what they're building, with Musselman there, and I think that they are a little bit more committed to winning at basketball than, a team like Washington for sure. So I could see them in the next 4 years being in the top 5 and right in the race, even as early as next year, like being at the top and competing every single year going forward.
Yeah, USC is tricky because I agree with you. I think they made a great hire when it comes to the head coach, but I almost think it's kind of the opposite of like their football rivalry with UCLA. USC can be good, and UCLA, almost no matter how good you are, like you're kind of still in the shadow. With UCLA and basketball, it's kind of the same thing. So I do wonder to myself if there's kind of a ceiling to the USC program. I think they'll contend, and they'll be close to the top 5, but I'd probably lean closer, at least in the next 3-4 years, to 5 than number 1.
I kind of agree with you right there too. Yeah, right around 5 for the next 4 years for sure.
Let's just go ahead and jump to their rivals, the UCLA Bruins.
I'm in love with them. I am all over UCLA this year. I'm getting made fun of for it. I love Mick Cronin. I love the team that they've built this year. Such a ridiculous roster they have for this year. And I mean, they could lose like 4 guys next year. If they could keep the core, they'll be good for the next 2 years for sure. So yeah, we're talking about the next 4 years. He's definitely, has the facilities. He has the resources. He has the drive to build a winner. And they're going to be near the top every single year starting this year.
Yeah, it'd be foolish not to put UCLA, right up top on this list, battling with some of the other teams I'm sure we're going to be talking about. Just, you're talking, if by any definition, UCLA is a blue blood. And, they've got the resources. They've got the fan base. Mick Cronin's a great coach. I'm not as high on them this year as you are. And actually, most pundits are. I do think, again, maybe it's because I've dealt with the whole Sky Clark thing before. I see Mick Cronin and Brad Underwood being very similar in style, and it didn't work for Sky under Brad Underwood. So I'm curious to see how it's going to work under big Mick Cronin. But
he loves him though. Like if you hear Mick talk about him, he is in love with Sky. So I mean, we'll see how he uses him though.
Yeah, I'm Brad Underwood and Jaden Epps. I thought was going to a match made in heaven when we recruited him out of high school. Like he seemed like one of those dog type of players that he would play 3-4 years for Illinois. Leave as one of our all-time leading scorers, and he barely survived half a season. So I mean, it's different once the lights turn on.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's go for another one, which I think is going to actually be an interesting topic. Rutgers.
This one's really tough because I don't think that for the next 4 years they will be in the conversation. I think that this is the year that they have to make a push. Obviously, they have like two of the best incoming freshmen like ever, basically, in the Big Ten. So after this year, though, when those guys are gone, it's like you're not going to be able to do that again, first of all. And even with those guys, I'm not even sure that they're going to be in the top 4 this year. So no, I don't think Rutgers is going to be competitive as far as, a team that's going to be someone that you're worried about winning the conference for the next 4 years. I'm not worried about that.
Rutgers is interesting because, I think Steve Pikiell's a good coach. I genuinely do. I think Rutgers is one of the toughest jobs in the country. Getting these two kids, Bailey and Harper, shows me that, Pikiell is building some sort of a pipeline with some of these top prospects. And I also kind of glance over to the football side. And Kent, I don't know if you've noticed, but the Rutgers football team, the NIL is going crazy over there. So I almost wonder that if Pikiell's able to translate these two young kids into on-court success this upcoming year, that all of a sudden that NIL fever doesn't also kind of move over to the basketball side, and they're able to invest in some of the top prospects. So that's one of the teams I thought about when I created this topic. I was like, Rutgers is the interesting intangibles team on this list.
I think it's so hard for me to erase everything that I've watched for the last 15 years, though. It's like it can't switch this fast for them to be a national power every year when it comes to recruiting. But maybe you know what? That's what when we were saying at the beginning, that's what makes it difficult to project what's going to happen in the next couple years. Maybe they are. Maybe you're right. That would be. I mean, in my brain, it's hard to wrap my arms around it, but maybe is what's going to happen. That would be awesome for Rutgers fans for sure.
The next team we're going to talk about, I think both you and I are going to have the same answer on. But first, let's run an ad. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, next up, we have Purdue Boilermakers. Kent, I think this is an easy one.
Absolutely. They're going to be competitive. It almost doesn't even matter what they do in recruiting. They have such a, factory there. They bring in guys that aren't even high level and they can make them all Americans, it seems like. So, Purdue's always going to be competitive. It's going to be, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with forever, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about top 4, top 5 team. Obviously, they don't have the generational Zach Edey anymore, but Braden Smith is still one of the best players, if not the best player, in the Big Ten Conference next year. And Matt Painter's not really quite at the age where there's any retirement rumors, and he's not a guy that's going to be leaving for another job. So for the next 4 years, there's no doubt Purdue's going to be one of the teams to be reckoned with. What about Penn State?
No, they're not going to be competitive.
Cosign. All right, let's go to Oregon.
Oregon's going to be interesting because I do like their coach, and it's going to kind of depend on, I mean, this is going to sound like I'm on repeat right now. It's going to depend on how much money they give to the basketball program for NIL and who they bring in. Right now, I think they have a pretty good team, but they're going to have to build it quickly for them to be on my page for like they're going to be competitive every year the next 4 years. I'm going to have to say they're going to be on the outside of the top 5 looking in, but they're still going to be very good. It's not like they're going to be a team you can just roll over, every week when you get them or whatever you play them.
Yeah, I think like I'd probably have them third when it comes to ceiling of the 4 teams coming in from the West Coast. Washington obviously being last, but they're pretty close to USC. I think USC, like on their really really good years, you're talking about winning titles, which I guess Oregon has come close to as well in the recent past. But I'll probably put them right around 5, just because I already have Illinois. Well, I guess we'll just go through the list. So instead of wasting time, let's go to the next team, Ohio State Buckeyes.
They're going to be competitive, but I don't think that they're going to, like, if you were like, I almost feel like I'm switching the question to like, in the next 4 years, are they going to win a Big Ten title? I don't think they will in the next 4 years. I like Diebler, but I don't think I would put him in the top 5 coaches in the conference. I don't think that Ohio State's going to, they have some good recruits coming in this year, but I don't know. They'd have to make some splashes in the transfer portal for me to get really excited about them anytime in the next 4 years. So I'm going to say no for them as well.
I agree. I think Ohio State is a top 5, maybe top 7 job, but I'm not sure if they're the top 5 team, just because Diebler, I need to see it on the court. Like he obviously, he beat Purdue in his first, I think it was his first game, he beat Purdue, while he was an interim coach. But I want to see him with a full season ahead, how he adapts to the Big Ten. There's just so many good coaches in this league that it's hard for me to say that they're going to be one of the top 5 best teams in the next 4 years. Next up, let's go to my least favorite team and your favorite, the Northwestern Wildcats. Simple answer, no.
Come on, man. Best coach in the conference. They do more with less than anybody in the conference. Again, I think that they're going to be near the top. I almost put them to like Oregon. Like they're going to be tough all the time, but they're going to be right on the outside of the top 5, like average the next couple of years. They got Brooks Barnheiser coming back this year. Come on, man. Put some respect on the Wildcats.
This is a 500 team moving forward.
Come on, man.
That's
Don't say that to me. That hurts my heart.
What about the Nebraska Cornhuskers?
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to be competitive. Like, I think they're going to, I'm super low on them this year. And I think it's going to continue unless some major changes happen. I like Fred, but, I don't think so.
I like Fred, and I think the nation enjoyed Nebraska last year because we all fell in love with Tominaga, but he's gone. And, Fred's, trying to cycle in new players every single year, it seems like. Yes, last year it worked, but I just don't know if he's quite the caliber of coach where he's going to be able to do it year in and year out. So if we're talking top 4, top 5, I don't think so. Minnesota Golden Gophers, resounding no for me.
Yeah, they're not going to be near the top. I love them, but they're not going to be near the top. Why do I love cheering for the teams that are always near the bottom? What's up with that? I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm a sicko.
Let's go to speaking of sickos, Michigan Wolverines.
I think they will be near the top. It's hard to say it right now because so much is changing this year, but I could see them winning a Big Ten title in the next 4 years. Absolutely. I think Dusty May's a good enough coach. I think he has enough experience in these types of situations. And he's already proven that he can get some, pretty reliable players in the transfer portal year 1. So, yeah, I could see them winning a title in the next 4 years for sure.
So for me, I mean, I guess we've already gone through the other 2 teams, so I can say this. Like, if we're talking about top 5, the teams I think that'll be consistently there annually is essentially going to be Illinois, Purdue, and UCLA, just based on past success, their coaches, and moving forward their resources. So for me, it's trying to figure out who the team from 4 to 7, 4 to 8 might be. And I think
Yeah.
Michigan is one of those teams as well. I do like Dusty May. I think he's a really good coach, and I like some of the moves that they've made already. Again, closer to 5 than 1. I'm not sure they're going to have a win it all potential, but yeah, we'll see. What about their rivals, the Michigan State Spartans?
I think this is the hardest one to predict because I do think that this is Tom Izzo's last season. I think that, I've said in the past, I think that if he has a bad year, he's going to fire himself because he loves the program so much that he won't let himself coach another year. So with that being said, I think there's going to be some transition the next 3 years after this year that I don't think that they'll be super competitive near the top, but this year they could be. So I'm going to say no, just because it all basically to me comes down to this year. And that's really the only reason why. There's no disrespect to Michigan State whatsoever.
I think based on the conditions that we've outlined, only in the next 4 years, that's why I'm probably going to lean towards no for Michigan State as well. I have all the credit in the world to give all the credit to Tom Izzo, but he doesn't seem like he's really adapting to what college basketball is becoming. And I know you said you think it's his last year. I'm not sure. But, if we had the timeline of, the next 15 years, sure, Michigan State obviously historically has always been a very good program. And I'd put them in the solidly yes category. But with us just talking about the next 4 years and just me not sure whether Izzo's going to be able to adapt or not, right now I'm just going to put them as a no. What about Maryland?
It always seems like they're good, but again, like with the next 4 years, I'm really looking at the coach, and I do not like Kevin Willard. So I'm going to say no, just based on my disdain for him. But they're going to have good teams still. They're going to have good players. They're going to get a guy like Jameer Young in there every year, it seems like. And they're going to win games they're not supposed to, and they're going to lose games that they're supposed to win. So I don't know, man. I'm going to say no. I don't think they're going to win a title in the next 4 years, but they're always going to be good. It seems like.
Yeah,
and bad. They're going to be good and bad all the time, it seems like.
Yeah, you basically said exactly what I would have said. They're always going to have good players and sometimes really, really good players, but Kevin Willard's in charge right now, and I think he's the worst coach in the conference, and it's just a matter of time before he's gone. So then you talk about who they're replacing him with. I'm going to say no for at least the next 4 years.
Juan Dixon replacement, by the way. That'd be a great.
What was that?
Juan Dixon comes in and replaces him.
That would have
heard it here first.
Speaking of replacing coaches, Iowa Hawkeyes are next.
Man, don't they need to replace him like right now? I'd rather talk about that with them. No, they're not going to be competitive. They never are. Seems like. I guess I just more put too much emphasis on their NCAA tournament, like, history in the last, 30 years. So I don't, for that reason, I'm out on them just because of that alone, I guess.
I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way, but I think Iowa was kind of feasting on programs close to them being down, such as Illinois. Illinois historically is a pretty decent program, but when we were down bad, Iowa was just, getting extra wins just clearly on us. They're beating us for recruiting wins. Underwood has us back now at this point. Now we're recruiting beyond levels we've ever recruited before. I think Fran is kind of at the stage of his career where you just know what he is. It's going to be a fun brand of basketball to watch, especially on the offensive end. But if we're talking about the next 4 years, I think Iowa needs to make a change. And I just don't know who that next guy would be. And so I'm going to go ahead and say no. And last but not least, the Indiana Hoosiers.
I'm going to say yes. I think more than any other team, Indiana has a fan base that is willing to pay to get wins. I mean, they have the biggest fan base in all the conference. It's no question. So I think that for that reason, they're always going to support their team. They're always going to have money to get the guys that they want. They're going to not have patience because of that same reason to keep a coach that's not living up to their expectations. So when that happens, and if that happens soon, they'll be able to get, like, more than any other team, I believe they can almost get any coach that they want. So they're always going to have a good coach. They're always going to have money. They're always going to be able to get the players that they want. So for those reasons, I think they're always going to be competitive, and I do think that they could win one in the next 4 years.
Rarely, Kent, do you make one good point in the show. On this show, you've done multiple, so I want to give you credit to that. I completely agree with you on Indiana. It's one of those jobs where the fan base is so passionate. And, they've got one big red flag right now, which seems to be the head coach. Mike Woodson, I think, is an okay college basketball coach. I just don't know if I'm ready to say he's a good college basketball coach right now. But if he's not, Indiana has everything else in abundance that any other head coach would jump at that job. Especially this past offseason, we saw how big of a NIL war chest that they have. They're a program that's willing to go out there, spend money, and bring in the right talent, the best talent out there. Obviously, the fan base is there. The recruiting, it's Indiana, so they can always get the players that they want. It's simply the head coach. So they're one of the few exceptions for this exercise where, even though I'm unsure about the head coach, I still put them yes on the list just because I think their floor is so high. And I guess I might as well talk about Illinois. For me, it's an obvious yes, but I'm biased, so let's hear an unbiased source.
I mean, I am on record multiple times on not only this show but other shows saying that if I had to put money on any team for this year, it's Illinois. And it's not just because I'm so confident that they're going to win this year. It's kind of more of like the reward that I would get from the betting sites right now. They're ranked like 8th in the conference to win. I don't understand it. I think that they could win it literally this year. So to be competitive for the next 4 years, the transition from last year's roster to this year's and how quickly it's happened for Brad, it gives me a lot of confidence that he's going to be able to do that year in and year out because he's got experience doing it. So, I think that they're going to be a top 4 team for the next 4 years, or top 5 team, whatever you want to call it, and be competitive every year for the next 4 years, for sure.
Yeah, I really think it all comes down to 2 guys, and that's Josh Whitman and Brad Underwood. Josh is the AD here, and he seems to really be focused on making sure our athletic programs thrive because of what's going to happen with college sports, 5 years from now. He wants to make sure Illinois stays in the conversation. And then there's Brad Underwood, who I've talked about on this show. I don't know if there's a coach out there that adapts as quickly as he does. Like, he's not one, he's the anti-Izzo in the sense where he's not stubborn at all. Like, if something's not working, he'll change it, not just from season to season, he'll change it mid-season if he has to. And that includes stuff on the court and even, the types of players he recruits off the court. So, like, whatever, future is ahead for the Illini, I just think Brad Underwood's always got his eyes moving forward, and he's going to keep us, at least contending for the conference. But all right, so those are all the teams. And Kent, how about this? After the break, let's talk about the future destinations announced for the Big Ten, and if there's any other cities that you and I would like to, possibly bring in. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Kent. So we have Indianapolis twice, we have Chicago, and then we have 2028 Las Vegas. What are your thoughts on moving out west?
I can't wait. I can't wait for Las Vegas. It's going to be, it's just going to be so awesome. I go to the Big Ten tournament every year. So like when they announced that they're actually going to do one in Vegas, me and the boys immediately started talking about that. And also immediately started looking up like where we're going to stay next year for Indy. Like that's going to be fun as well. So I'm very excited about it. I can't wait to attend all of these. The only thing that I'm kind of bummed about still is like, there's 4 teams that are going to be left out, but I'm trying to get over that part. But yeah, very, very exciting to visit some new cities and see some new arenas with these Big Ten tournaments. It could be fun.
See, the interesting thing with me on my side is me and my group of friends. We've gone to Vegas like I would say for the last 6 or 7 years. We go like during conference tournament weekend. Not quite March Madness, just because everything is booked up during that week. But conference tournament, like we all thought was kind of like our little secret, our life hack, because you'd have basketball from the minute you wake up until midnight West Coast time. Dealing with the Pac-12. So now being there for conference tournament weekend and the Big Ten actually being there should be interesting. It actually makes sense at the Big Ten media days in Indianapolis 2 weeks ago. Tony Petitti was asked a question about Las Vegas, about how a lot of the major leagues are, trying to put teams there, and how the Big Ten seems like it's content at its 18 teams, and if they were going to make any more ventures out west. And he did mention Las Vegas as like a destination that they were going to be involved with moving forward. And now you can see what he was kind of referring to. I don't think this is going to be like a one-stop shop. I think Vegas, is just kind of appeasing the teams out in the West Coast. I mean, who doesn't like Vegas? Especially if you have a couple years to plan a Vegas trip, with the boys. I think this was a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's going to be. I can't wait. I just can't wait for that. They could have put it anywhere, though. To be honest, it's just my favorite week of the year because I get to actually go to it. I've convinced my wife that that's a week that I have to be away from my family, and so it's always like one of my favorite weeks of the year, anyways. But yeah, all the locations that they could have chosen, I would have been happy. But obviously, like going to Las Vegas is going to be awesome.
So whatever a couple other destinations that you think the Big Ten should look into? Anyone who follows you on Twitter knows of one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm starting a campaign to get one in my city that I live in down here in Nashville, which it makes sense. Like, I don't care what anyone says. It makes sense. It's in between the two coasts, and it's just south of all the teams that are in the Midwest, and it's a tourist town. So, like, let's get it going. We can have one down here, and we have plenty of venues that we could host it in. But no, I would say, like, realistically, I would love one like somewhere in Pennsylvania. Like we talked about Philadelphia last night on the College Huddle. And we also discussed the West Coast cities. I know Seattle somewhere that I would love to visit. That would be awesome. But yeah, like I said, if they could have it anywhere, especially if it's a city I haven't been to, I'll be really excited about it. That's why Minneapolis was so fun for me last year, because I had never been there before, and it was a great time. And I ended up falling in love with the city. So it'll be fun wherever it's at, and I can't wait to go to these next four and maybe some other ones after that.
Yeah, I think it makes sense just to cycle through Chicago, Indy, Minneapolis, Chicago, Indy, Minneapolis, like 3 out of the 5 years, and then the fourth and fifth years, like pick one city out west and maybe one city out east. Out east, you brought up Philadelphia. Philadelphia makes sense, but then you also have like Washington, D.C., with Maryland being out there. On the West Coast, you have not just a Staples Center, but that new stadium that the Clippers are building. You would think like that's supposed to be top of the line everything. So that might be a spot that their owner would love to kind of showcase his new little toy. But for the most part, I think the Big Ten, despite it being a national conference, I like the idea that they stick around at least in the middle of the country. It's just the easiest, I think, for people to travel. Minneapolis, I've been to Minneapolis. I haven't been to their stadium like you went to last year, but I heard it was a pretty decent experience.
Yeah.
I think you agree.
Yeah.
Chicago was, their home base, the conference home base is in Chicago, so I don't think they're ever going to leave here.
But do we have to do it at the United Center though? Like for half of the week, it's like empty in there. It would be almost better if they picked a different, smaller, more like, I don't know, user-friendly location in Chicago. Chicago is such an awesome city. Like to have it at the United Center, it almost takes away from the city a little bit, I thought.
I think DePaul's building a stadium like on the lakefront. So maybe ultimately we can see how many people that fits. But if it's DePaul, I'm not trying to disrespect any Blue Demons fans that are watching this, of which I'm sure there's many. You're talking about probably building like a 10 to 15,000 capacity stadium. And might that be big enough? I don't know. Like the United Center is the biggest basketball arena attendance wise, or well, at least it was for a really long time in the NBA. So I think they're just trying to cram everyone in. But I agree with you. We do have other options like All-State Arena, but no real basketball arenas like in downtown. Everything is kind of a little drive away up until this DePaul Stadium is built. But regardless, we'll see. Kent, thank you again for joining me today. Let the folks know where they can find you.
At Casual Big Ten on X.
And you're constantly streaming on YouTube as well.
I've been streaming quite a bit. Yeah, we're in the Dynasty League. We're trying to get the league rolling. We're still stuck in week 1 right now, but I'll have those games coming out as they progress through the year here, and I'm gonna win. So it's nice to get ahead of that right now in week 1.
All right, Kent. I'll see you next week.
All right, we'll see you.
Thank you for joining me on this Friday edition of Locked On Illini. A simple reminder, if you'd like to support the channel, it costs you guys nothing. Just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It'll help me a great deal. If you're watching this on YouTube, actually do me a favor. Go to your favorite podcast app and hit that subscribe button over there too, because that really helps, again, put the Illini content in front of other Illini fans. And remember, I'm the only guy out here providing this for you every single day. I hope you all enjoy your weekend. Most likely we will have a weekend fun episode at some point. Until then, ILL love you guys.